So I thought, I haven't done one of these in quite a while, and I want to talk a little bit about what I've come to know about um, cord clamping and the detriment of early cord clamping. And I've done a lot of reading about this over the years, and one of my favorite researches is Judith Mercer. I think I've read pretty much everything she's written about the topic. She's a certified nurse midwife from Rhode Island. So here's what I have come to understand or have learned. When a baby is born, there is blood in the placenta, and sometimes the baby gets kind of squeezed through the birth canal so that there's actually a net transfer of blood out of the baby so that there's a word for it. The baby has like a low amount of blood in their body. I can't think of the word right now, but that doesn't matter. So when the baby gets born and the baby's heart is beating at a good heart rate, we know, like antenatally, while the woman is in labor or intrapartum, we're watching that baby's heart rate. And if the baby has a good, healthy heart rate, because the baby is pumping the blood through the cord with its own heart, you can just feel the cord and you feel a good, healthy heart rate. And this indicates that the baby is not deprived of oxygen. You know, just like in labor, if the baby's not getting enough oxygen, the heart rate's going to start to drop low. But if it's a good, healthy heart rate, from feeling it, I just usually hold it between my fingers at the, right by where the cord attaches to the baby's tummy, and you can count it easily by just feeling it. And so what's happening is that the baby's getting, it's like its own blood transfusion of blood that it needs to do the transition to extrauterine life. And so the blood's pumping from the placenta, like there's a net transfer from the placenta to the baby. So I think the word's exsanguinated, if there's like not much blood in the baby from being squished a bit at birth. You know how they can look kind of floppy and white if they've come through, especially if there's been a shoulder dystocia or something that often is what leads to the people providing care to clamp and cut the cord and take the baby right away. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is a very bad practice. And what should be happening is you leave that cord attached. The baby's heart rate, as long as it's okay. And actually, I've seen a few babies where the heart rate was low, and I gave them a bit of mouth to mouth or, bag and mask, and get a bit of air going, and their heart rate picks up again, and they still pump the blood that they need from their placenta. So anyway, normally the baby is going to get born. The blood that was in the placenta is going to have a net transfer from placenta to baby, and things are happening in the baby in preparation for breathing. So essentially, the lung tissue is not, before birth, it's not doing much, right? The lungs are doing like maybe some little practice breathing movements, but they're not like fully expanded and breathing. Well, the lungs become erect with the extra blood. So there's like erectile tissue that the lungs, I'm not talking about air yet. I'm just talking about blood in the lung tissue, and then the alveoli that are the little sacs that that the air comes in and out once the baby starts breathing. Well, the walls of the alveoli get stretched and thinned out, and that helps with gas exchange when the baby does start to breathe. So what I'm saying is that the baby's living on the cord, getting exactly what the baby needs through its cord, just like it did for 9 months. Not only is it just surviving, it's thriving. It's grown from a, conception to 9-month-old baby. Well, it's still getting what it needs if you leave that cord alone. And then it gets the stuff that it needs to survive, in the best way possible after birth. And it's like, the way I thought of it is, I have a son who's a scuba diver, right? And sometimes when you're doing commercial diving, you're down underwater with a lifeline. So instead of having a tank on your back, you might have a hood thing and an air coming through a lifeline. So it would be like him getting to the surface of the water, and then they clamp and cut the lifeline before he's gotten his hood off and everything ready to like breathe air. So of course you're going to scramble around and start breathing. That's what the baby does. If his lifeline gets cut, he's going to and start breathing and probably cry, because it would be very startling for a baby to all of a sudden have a cord clamped and cut after it's gone through this tight canal to get birthed. I mean, the baby feels those contractions as well as the squeezing through. So in one of Judith's research articles about the cord stuff, she told this story about how there were some racehorses. They were breeding racehorses on a farm, and they discovered that the foals that were born out in the paddocks or the fields were surviving and doing well, and then all the foals that were born in the barn were dying or not doing well. And they started looking at, well, what's going on in the barn, right? Why are the foals being born in the barn not doing so well? Well, it turned out that there were people watching, cameras, whatever was going on in the barn. So the humans were going out to assist, with those newborn foals. And guess what? They were clamping and cutting their cords right away. Well, in nature, that does not happen. And so without that blood from a, uncut cord that the foal didn't get, they actually die. And what happens with our babies is that they have more anemia at, 6, 7, 8 months old. They don't have the benefit of the stem cells, because that cord blood and placental blood is full of stem cells, which can go to the parts of the baby that need, assistance to heal after a difficult birth. And then they've looked at children, I think up to 4 years old. Developmentally, there are differences that babies who've had their cords prematurely clamped aren't reaching the milestones developmentally at the same rate as the children who have their cords left alone. So what I'm saying is, those babies that come out and don't breathe right away and look a bit floppy and pale, as long as their cord is pulsing okay, then you better leave them alone. Do not clamp and cut that cord and take the baby somewhere where the hospitals set up their resus um, equipment on the other side of the room. That what needs to happen is what we do at home births all the time, and that is keep the baby on the mom, with the mom, watch the baby. The mom can talk to the baby. I usually feel the cord. If it's pulsing well, then leave it alone and rub the baby. And I'm going to tell you all now, I think it's 18 years ago. This kid is a plumbing apprentice now and a basketball star, right? Might even be 19, I can't remember. But he came out and we were at a birthing center. So if I'd been at a home birth, I would have had my bag and mask and oxygen tank if needed right there. But this birthing center did not have a bag and mask available for me to bring over and give that baby some help to start breathing. And he didn't, and his cord was pulsing well, so I didn't want to clamp and cut a cord that was pulsing well at a rural birthing center to take the baby over to the other side of the room where the table was set up with a, resus equipment over there. And he didn't breathe, I'll tell you now, for 17 minutes. So he was out with his cord pulsing for 17 minutes, and we were rubbing him and talking to him, and then he started to breathe. I'm telling you, those cords are doing important work. Leave them alone. And even at least until the cord's gone white, and if possible, until after the placenta has birthed. And even then, there is such a thing as lotus birth, or, you can leave the cord and cut it an hour or 2 hours, or, just before I leave from a home birth. I had a situation once where a baby was born at a hospital, and she, I think, wasn't breathing right away, but the heart rate through the cord was like 120. And the charge midwife and another midwife were over at the resuscitator telling me, give us the baby, give us the baby. And I said, his heart rate is good. His heart rate, her heart rate is good. And they were making such a stink and like demanding that I give them this baby, who was transitioning just fine, just hadn't done huge breaths yet. So finally, after, I don't know, 2 or 3, maybe even 4 minutes, I can't remember, they were making such a stink about giving them the baby that I finally did it, because they were upsetting the family so much and making it like I was doing something terribly wrong. And then after I gave them the baby, they kept the baby over at the resuscitator for way longer than necessary. And then afterwards, when, finally the baby got back with the mom and they were doing fine together, and I went out to the office, I said to the charge midwife, we need to talk about what just happened in there. And she said, you're darn tootin' we do. And I said, you do not clamp and cut a cord that is beating beautifully, especially if that baby is not breathing. And I walked out. She just looked like I was some kind of crazy person. And it's not the way it's getting taught. I'm so obviously unhappy about all these children, like babies, premature babies, that they leave their cord intact. They have less, I don't know if you all know, necrotizing, something to do with the bowels. It's a big problem with babies that are premature, that part of their bowel doesn't have enough blood supply to it, and they end up having to cut out sections of their bowel because they die, parts of the bowel. They don't have that much. They don't have as much cerebral palsy. They have so much better outcomes with premature babies. Well, guess what? Same with fully grown babies. And I'm still hearing stories about doctors saying there's no evidence, or it's no benefit. Well, I'm telling you that is not true. There's mounting evidence, and now finally research showing the benefits of resuscitating babies essentially just by leaving them attached to their placenta. They may not even need anything else or very little else. So that's my little talk about that.